emergency management. So for the next few minutes, we're going to dive into how a few key examples of how GIS fits into emergency management and how we prepare for and respond to crises in our community. So it's an increasingly complex and dynamic topic, and it's requiring us to explore this through different scenarios and demonstrations, and I'll step you through a couple of those today. Please, before we start though, don't forget they'll be here after the stand, so if you have any questions or would like to cover anything that is discussed, please come up to one of the friendly staff and we'll take you through it. So with that being said, let's cover some of the foundational requirements that are driving GIS innovation within emergency management. So the increasing magnitude of emergency events and the prolonged uncertainty with changing weather events is changing the way we see emergency management moving forward and what is expected from it moving forward. So we're observing wise leadership practices building resilience and preparedness into our teams, but also our community and our capabilities. And GIS, through technology, is a fundamental enabler in the decision-making cycle for emergency management. And it can provide data and insights, as well as a lens through which to view this complexity. So, as I was saying, GIS can be leveraged across the varying stages of an emergency management life cycle. And so we're seeing an increased emphasis on the prepare phase, and primarily through community engagement and education, as well as critical infrastructure management. So an example of this would be an agency using proximity or predictive modelling to see which areas are at risk of affecting critical infrastructure. We're seeing the respond and recovery part of this being the traditional elements of where GIS has fit in the past. And this is where we need relevant and timely data that lines up with your priority information requirements. The response stage may include some field workers going out in the field and collecting some information through door knocking or through a volunteer network. And the next stage is the recovery phase. This can involve the coordination of field elements as well, but it's more designated around impact assessments. An example of this would be going out, assessing impacted areas against bushfires and doing pre and post asbestos burn assessments, or something to do with federal government, keeping track of the grants and money they give out to affected communities. And lastly, we've got prevention or mitigation phase, and this is where our lessons learned are fed back into the cycle, and then we start again. So as I was saying, there is an increased emphasis on applying GIS within the prepare and prevent phases, and we're seeing some novel and innovative ways that we can apply GIS to emergency management and its coordination. Technology empowers us to simulate and analyse many disaster scenarios to within a degree of accuracy, and it allows us to identify vulnerabilities in our community and plan strategies that mitigates against these vulnerabilities. So it is a catch in the sense that as these capabilities increase, so does the expectation to use them. So let's dive into some examples and some real-world scenarios of GIS technology supporting emergency services. So rapidly evolving disaster scenes require first responders and decision makers to make decisions quickly, and they need to have the right information to make those critical decisions. So through preventative actions such as the Royal Commissions, we're seeing an increased emphasis on situational awareness and coordination that transcends across borders. And so this is a way of building dashboards that develop into tools, and they stitch together diverse sets of data in terms of incident management feeds as well as satellite imagery. And so if we couple that with detailed informational requirements that are designed prior to events, we can see an overall increase in the preparedness and the resilience for posturing in emergency management. So the next one is about picturing a scenario where disaster preparedness isn't just a top-down approach, but it's a collective effort of the entire community facilitated through technology. And so this is the essence of AFAC23 Hub and community engagement capability. It facilitates two-way communication between authorities and residents, and fosters a sense of community, and it also helps you build an understanding of your community better, and crowdsourcing some of that hazard reporting. It also places communities in partnership with agencies, and it allows them to design strategies that meet their unique strengths and vulnerabilities and mitigate against those. So, and the last example I would like to talk about is a disaster-stricken scenario
difficult access, making traditional damage assessments slow or risky, something you all are probably aware of. Here's where SiteScan for AFAC23 is coming to the South Australian floods, which for some of you may have seen at our previous events. It's small, easily deployed drones equipped with high-resolution cameras. The sensors were placed swiftly with ESRI Australia's assistance to capture aerial imagery. This was processed and made the information available through WebGIS functionality and emergency coordination centres, acting as the eyes in the sky. And this capture highlighted the extent of flooding and it contextualised the extent of damage across multiple levels of government. That brings us to the conclusion of our brief presentation. I hope you're able to take away the simple message of where GIS can fit into emergency management lifecycle and some insights and trends and seeing and implementing against real world scenarios. If I'll field any questions or discussion you want to have. Thank you.